Oh, hello there, and thanks for joining Uncomplicated Math today. Today we're going to be looking at how to divide a fraction by a whole number. And by the end of this video, you'll know the steps involved when dividing fractions by whole numbers. So let's get started. So in question number 1, we're being asked to divide the fraction of 3/4 by the whole number of 3. So looking over to the right-hand side here under our steps involved, we can see that our first step is to convert our whole number to an improper fraction. And anytime you're looking to convert a whole number into a fraction, you're going to write a fraction where the value of the whole number is going to be the value of the numerator and the denominator is going to have a value of 1. Because the 3 groups of 1 is the same thing as just the whole number of 3. So now before we move on to step number 2, we're going to write out the rest of this division problem so we don't get confused for when we move on to step number 2, where we're going to work through the fraction division steps in order to divide these fractions. And those steps are keep, change, and flip. So we're going to keep our first fraction the same. It's going to remain 3/4, but we're going to change the operation here. So to divide these fractions, we're actually going to be multiplying them instead. And then for the flip part, we're going to flip our second fraction, so the denominator is going to become the new numerator and the numerator is going to become the new denominator for the reciprocal of the second fraction. So we're going to be multiplying the first fraction by the reciprocal of the second fraction. So now we're going to move on to step number 3, where we're going to multiply these fractions. So starting out with our numerators, when we multiply 3 times 1, we get 3. And then for our denominators, when we multiply 4 times 3, we get 12 for 3/12. So now moving on to step number 4, we're going to try and simplify this fraction. And now since both 3 and 12 are multiples of 3, we're going to divide both the denominator and the numerator by 3 in order to simplify this fraction. And when we divide 12 by 3, we get 4. And when we divide 3 by 3, we get 1 for 1/4. So when we divide 3/4 by 3, we get the fraction of 1/4 when written in its lowest possible terms. So now we're going to move on to question number 2, where this time we're being asked to divide the fraction of 2/8 by the whole number of 5. So now remembering our first step is to convert our whole number into an improper fraction. So we're going to write a fraction where the whole number of 5 is our numerator and we have a denominator of 1. And then we're going to write out the rest of this division problem before we move on to step number 2, where we're going to keep, change, and flip. So our first fraction, we're going to keep the same. It's going to remain 2/8. And then we're going to change the operation. So now we're multiplying. And then we're going to flip our second fraction. So now it's going to be 1/5 instead of 5/1. And now we're going to move on to step number 3, where we're going to multiply these fractions. And starting with our numerators, when we multiply 2 times 1, we get 2. And then for our denominators, when we multiply 8 times 5, we get 40 for 2/40. So now we're going to move on to step number 4, where we're going to simplify. And in this case, both 2 and 40 are multiples of 2. So we're going to divide both the denominator and the numerator by 2 to simplify this fraction. And when we divide 40 by 2, we get 20. And when we divide 2 by 2, we get 1 for 1/20. So when we divide 2/8 by the whole number of 5, we get the fraction of 1/20 when written in its lowest possible terms. So hopefully by now you understand the steps involved when dividing a fraction by a whole number. Help make math less complicated by smashing those like and subscribe buttons. As always, enjoy today's math journey.